It's now the following day. In fact, it's 2 days later, to be honest. I always wax at least a day after I've painted, and then I can be 100% sure that the paint is completely dry. So for the waxing, all we're going to do is we're going to use some Annie Sloan clear wax here. Let me just show you this inside. I just open this up. So although it looks white, it is actually clear. It will dry clear onto the paint, so it will keep this lovely colour that I've painted in so far. I'm going to use an Annie Sloan wax brush because I find it so much quicker and easier to get a coat of a good even coat of wax on. So what the waxing does is it seals the paint. It's a water-based paint. So if I took a damp cloth to it now, I would literally be able to wash all of that paint off. So you do need to wax it. The waxing will also protect the finish, so it's less likely to scratch or mark or chip. The other thing that you'll need is a lint-free cloth. Now, I just use these decorators cloths that I get from a local shop. In fact, I get them in wicks. And these are to wipe off the excess wax, but I'll show you what I mean. In terms of things that I've done since doing the second coat of paint, I've let all of that dry, and I've now just drilled some holes for the position of the new knobs. You didn't want to see me working with a power tool, so I did that off camera. But we're now ready to go. So let me turn this round. In fact, I'll take the drawers out first. There we go, and we're ready. The wax, the Annie Sloan wax, has got the texture of, it's kind of a bit like soft butter, so it does flow on really easily. So I'm going to get my wax brush, and I'm going to have some clear wax, and I'm just going to put a bit of the wax on the end of my brush. I've got a fair amount there. And now I'm going to brush it over this surface. So I'm going to work systematically over it so that I can see very clearly where I've waxed. So I will literally just brush it on all different directions, and hopefully you can see, hopefully you can see that this bit here where I've waxed has gone very slightly darker. So you can see very clearly where you've waxed and where you haven't. And you do need to make sure that you wax the whole surface. So I'm going to help myself to a little bit more wax and keep going to finish this whole side of the bedside. So I'm brushing it around in different directions so that I get the wax into all of my brush strokes there, and a bit more. There we go. Make sure I've got it underneath as well. And I'll just do the base bit here. Sure I've got it all covered. You see, it goes on quite easily when you use a wax brush. These have been specially designed for putting the wax on, and they've got a nice tapered tip. So if you've got carved detail on something, or even just a ridge like you've got here and at the top, you can push the wax into those bits really easily. So that whole surface is now covered with wax. I'm going to take my decorator's cloth. It's a lint-free cloth. Basically, You can use any lint-free cloth. It's really something that isn't fluffy, so you don't want to get any fluffy bits in your finished piece. And now I'm just going to wipe off the excess wax. I'm not rubbing it in, I'm not massaging it at all, I'm not buffing it, I'm just doing it to take off any bobbly bits of wax or any of the excess. I can see a little bit down here where I've missed, so I'm just going to do those bits again. That's it. So waxing is as simple as that. You're not buffing it or anything like that. This will now cure to give a beautiful matte finish. Now, if you want your piece to have a bit of a sheen to it, all you do is the day after you've waxed, so 24 hours later, you can buff it. And all you do is you get a rag, I often use just an old bit of towel, and you'll literally buff it. But today you don't do any of that. That side is now completely finished. And I quite like the matte finish, so I don't normally even use this to buff it the day after. So I'll show you the other side. Just turn it round. There we go. And a bit more wax. Just brushing it on. I try to work in sections so that I remember the bits that I've done and where I've still got to go. So as you see, I've started just under here and I'm now going to work back this way. There's no set way to do it, that's just how I do it. So it's just a nice even coat. So the whole surface is covered. I'll do the bottom bit again. There we go. And again, just taking off the excess with your cloth. And the bottom. That's it. So stick with me while I do the rest. Mustn't forget these bits down the sides and all of this section at the front. Waxing is probably one of the things that I get asked the most questions about, apart from those people who have been to one of my workshops, so they now understand the whole process. Lots of people think you need to buff it as you're putting it on. You don't. It's really straightforward. Just brush it on and wipe off the excess. Wiping off the excess is really important. If you did... Oh, it's a bit dirty underneath. There we go. If we did too thick a coat or forgot to wipe off the excess, what will happen is with a thick coat of wax, the top layer will cure, but the underlying area on a really thick coat, it will never get to the air, so it will never cure. So it won't give you a really nice, smooth, even finish. I'm just going to do the little bit under the top here. just for completeness. Now I might leave the top for now and do that afterwards. I'll do the drawers and show you those, because then I can show you those nice and close up. So all of this is completely dry. Each drawer, don't forget the sides and the little lip that will feed into the actual cavity of the drawer. Really nice, quick and easy, wiping off the excess. The wax will start to cure really quite quickly, so that's why I work in sections across the piece of furniture. Let's put that in there, and then you can start to see it take shape. I need to take the masking tape off the edges of the drawers as well. There we go, and this one. Again, a nice coat of wax. I suppose a bit like my painting, I'm brushing it on in quite big sweeps on the drawers, and I can do that because my brush strokes for my paint were all in one direction. Had I painted in a very haphazard way, I'd really need to move my wax brush around to make sure that it went into all of the detail that I'd created with the brush strokes. But this was just a simple finish. And I'll just peel those bits of masking tape off, and I'll show you close up what those edges now look like. So you can see here that there's a nice clean edge there. This bit's not painted, but these bits are. And I've also just waxed here. For the first night that I've waxed, I would leave the drawers open a peep, just to allow the wax on those edges to cure as well, so that they don't get stuck in the drawers. Wipe off the excess again, no buffing, literally just wiping the excess off. Take the edges off. Last one. So it shouldn't look patchy at all if you've got a really good coat of good coat of wax over it. Taking off the last bit. Oh. The key to remember when you're wiping it off is if you were to run your fingers over it afterwards, you'll certainly feel that you've put something on there, but it shouldn't feel slimy. It will feel slightly tacky, but not slimy. If it feels slimy, you've still got too much wax on there. And then, take those off. Pop that back in there. And I'll just show you the new knobs that I'm going to put on. So they're these rather nice ones, which are much nicer than the originals. And I'm just going to slide those on. I'll put the nuts on the back to secure them, but you probably don't want to watch me do that. So just to give you an idea of the finished effect. I know I haven't waxed this bit yet, I'll do that in a tick. But there is the finished bedside. So it really was super quick and easy to do with this kind of more modern, contemporary look, and endlessly better than that horrible dark wood. Do share with me on my Facebook and Instagram pages, Westcott and Williams, your transformations. I'd really love to see them. I hope you found this useful. So just a quick summary of what I did. Coat of paint straight out the tin, although I did a mix, but coat of paint straight out the tin. I probably used about 1/3 of a litre here, 1/3 to half a litre. My second coat of paint I thinned down with a little bit of water so it flowed really nicely and the paint went further. And then the day after painting, you can wax your piece using the Annie Sloan wax. Brush it on in sections and wipe off the excess using a J cloth or a lint-free cloth of some description. Change the handles if you want to, and that's it. Oh, leave your drawers open a peep the first night, just to let your wax cure here on these edges. And that's it. Pop it back in the bedroom, sleep tight. Thanks for joining me. Cheers. Bye.